So check this out. When you pay for those roads, you pay for the public means to make sure that nobody is infringing on your property. Originally, when these roads began to exist, right?
Right.
Think about it. Is there anywhere in the United States that is not commercially or privately owned besides the road? Even
Residential.
these,
I guess
even
nothing.
the pub, even a public courthouse. Well, that's the Cache County, so it's the private city courthouse. So it's public in the sense that, oh, hey, shit, while I'm on there, I got to remember these are topics I wanted to go over. And this is, it just escaped me right there saying, oh, yeah, okay, this is it. So own nothing, control everything. We all know that. It's a Rockefeller quote, right? That's
Yeah.
where we're all trying to found these trusts and stuff on.
Right.
But it's important to know this. If you're acting as beneficiary and you don't have anything other than the existence of the trust that proves you're beneficiary, acting as beneficiary, you weren't appointed beneficiary, you are beneficiary. Now, when you become a trustee, now that's the same as saying I don't own anything in it except the liability. So you do own the liability. It's an appointed status, so it's not a free reign. Like, I hope you guys get what I mean by that. When you are the trustee, you still do not control it all. You are bound by the liabilities. This is what a judge is. This is what we want the judges to be, a trustee. This is what we want our public servants to be, trustees.
They are.
Yeah, but when we turn ourselves into the trustee, well, what do you think they're trying to do when you go into court in the first place, where they're taking a private bond? So a government contractor, we're going to get back to my court case because this all ties together. I just needed to get that verbiage out. Okay. If you go to a traffic court case, it's basically the city suing you. So it's not really a criminal thing. It's a civil suit, except for the fact that it affects a privilege issued by the state. So the outcome of this could affect your driving privileges, right? Therefore, you need to have a court that has to follow due process involved. But the reason I bring that up is because anytime you want to sue anybody, what do you have to do? You have to put some kind of surety down, right? I don't know the numbers. I don't know what it is, but if you want to go get a court case going, you have to pay them some money, right? Is anyone familiar with this? Am I just high in the night thinking that?
No, there's court fees.
So if the city wants to take me to court, the city doesn't exist, but they're public servants. So they hire a prosecuting attorney who's a government contractor. If he wants to take me to court, he has to put down money. But he never is going to put down money because he's acting on your behalf. Because in all reality, think about it, you're already de facto the employee of your estate because you were legally dead or lost at sea by 8, right?
Yeah.
So he's a government contractor, and what he's going to do is he's going to go to the Government Services Agency and he's going to fill out a form SF20 or SF24. Okay. What this form is it's a bid. It's a bid of all the damages and everything that could incur, or if you were innocent and they had to pay you back, they would have to include that in the bid bond. Keep in mind, they never do, so they're already biased to your innocence. Anyway, they're making a bid, and this money is based off of your name, as the surety that in the end, you will be the one who pays it back. So instead of actually spending money, they're going to contract with the Government Services Agency and make a bid bond, a performance bond, and a payout bond. These are all GSA forms. Okay. In other words, you're going to pay it back. We are giving them money, but it's money backed by your name. Now, when you go into court, what's the first thing they want to do? They want to convert you into the trustee. They call you the defendant. They make you come and stand in a position so that they can presume that you are the trustee. So going into court and saying you're the trustee is a bad thing. One second, I'm looking for a piece of paper here because I want to tell you what I filed on that motorcycle thing.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about this.
It's pretty brilliant.
See, and and I'll explain the whole thing because you got to realize it's chess. Who goes first in chess?
White.
White. Who goes second?
Black.
Black. So the judge sees you as black no matter what when you go into court until you identify as otherwise. Just saying.
You got to go in and take control of the courtroom.
Yeah, and you got to tell them I am a white man. I don't care if you're of African, I don't care what your skin color is, okay? Because that has nothing to do with what they're looking at. They're looking at black as devoid of color and without status.
Black means black means dead. Didn't it derive from a German word that literally means pale?
Yeah, that would actually make sense.
I'm pretty
that
sure
would make sense.
Derived from a German word that meant pale. So that's why they consider it dead. That's why they try to get us to classify as a color. White obviously is pale, and black derives from a German word that meant pale. So you're the dead.
The decedent.
The decedent.
Okay, so this is how I started. There we go. Got all my ducks in a row. They won't stay that way for long, though, so don't expect me to teach anyone how I did it. Okay, so the first thing I did is I typed up my own paper here. I'll let you kind of see. It's going to be hard to see. You just look at it and check it out and be like, okay, page 1 of 2, page 2 of 2. Anyway, just that way you got a format. If we got to look it on video, then you got to do that. But what it is it's a petition for dismissal upon remedy for both lack of subject matter and probable cause. Now, I'm not a lawyer, thank God. Therefore, I have more rights in court when it comes to giving the court notices or filing paperwork. I don't need to follow their tools. This judge that I've dealt with, she gets mad at me because I don't use emotion. And they always try to get me to use emotion. Well, emotion is the tool of the court. I'm not a lawyer. I can't make emotion. But I can sure as hell petition the court for anything I want.
Abatements.
Yeah. Hey, you better get in on this because
you don't ever hear a lawyer talk about abatements. You need to do abatement equity law.
So I got someone who, I'm trying to get someone else to join, just sitting in a chair over here, being a slacker. They could get in on this about prayer. What is a prayer to the court? Anyway, that's what I did. I petitioned for dismissal. And what are these ridiculous things? I don't want dismissal. I want a remedy. I want this dismissed, and I need to be damages you guys made. And the reason is you have no subject matter and no probable cause. Okay? First off, you pulled me over because I had no plates, even though that's not why you pulled me over. Because literally, there's a whole bunch to it. I literally watched the guy slam on his brakes, stop a car behind him to get behind me, and his lights are already on. A motorcycle only has plates on the back if it has plates. So you weren't trying to pull me over. You know what I'm saying? There's other reasons. I don't know why. It's not my ability to say why, but that's the justification. We pulled you over because you had no plates. Now, and this is all based on the merit of this. And whether it's true or not, because there will be those who debate, it is that the verbiage of it makes it hard for them to deny it. We're back on the fact that everything is either commercially or privately owned. Well, here in the land of the free, I am not going to be forced by my government to have to pay a third-party troll under the fucking bridge to go anywhere. I'm not paying a goddamn toll, especially when you take taxes out that pay for these bonds that you are building these roads, these public roads, for me to use. Now, it's important to know, if I want to engage in any activity at all that will damage that public road, right? We'd be a personal, commercial, no matter what I want to do. If I want to travel on that road, and you got to realize travel is still something that a pedestrian does, and it's a private form of commerce. Just because something's private doesn't mean it's not commercial. But anyway, long story short, that road, what is the purpose of that road? That is so that I don't go tromping through your front yard. If you don't think so, it's widely accepted that my neighbor would be mad if I drove an 18-wheeler through his front yard, right?
Fair.
Facts.
So that's why the roads exist, right? I'm not going to pay a troll toll to use it in its intended capacity. Now we'll get on this paperwork because it's interesting. Now, first off, I always, because remember, you're black unless you say otherwise. Tell them who I am and who this is by. You know, it's by me, my full name, first name, middle name, you know, and then the separation, last name with a lowercase first letter, you know. As a real party in interest, third party interest intervener under injury, sole shareholder in my name in all capital letters, and I'm just copying what they put on the paperwork to take me to court. You know what I'm saying? Settler and beneficiary of that same name again, and then you put the account number. Then he goes, comes now, me, a real party interest, third party interest, intervener under injury. Remember, I want remedy. Sole shareholder in this name that they drew their trust, that they drew their bonds on. Settler beneficiary of the name, account number, who is neutral in the public. That is important. Who is unschooled in law and making a special appearance before this court under the supplemental rules of Admiralty, Rule E8. Not that it applies to me, but I want to kind of inform them that there's something like that may apply to them. A restricted appearance without granting jurisdiction and notices the court of enunciations and principles stated in Haynes versus Kerner 404 U.S. 519. That is the only case law that I have in this entire paperwork, and it is the only one that I think is ever important in any document to begin with initially. The reason I say that is because all that is saying, because I'm not a lawyer, so an inmate hit another inmate over the head with a shovel, you know. They threw him in solitary confinement. And when he went to court, they wanted his evidence. And he's like, I can't give you my evidence because you want it in writing and I was in solitary confinement. They don't give me pens. They don't give me paper. And therefore, the courts ruled on the guidelines of this. If you are unschooled in law, neutral in the public, right, then we have to take what you write for merit rather than the way it is written. So English is a very interesting thing in how you cast your spell, you know? If you say, so this is the correct grammar. I'm sorry to have heard that. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry for you, you know? You tell me about the tragedy in your life. I'm sorry for that. But I had no effect in that. So sorry is a word of empathy. Or it's a state of something. When something is in the sorry state, that's bad. So someone's like, I'm sorry. Yeah, I can tell you're sorry. Sorry, piece of shit.
Right.
You apologize. You admit that, so you might not do it again. Okay, nice. You acknowledge that you caused the problem. Now you apologize. Oh, that means you'll think about it, maybe not do it again. I can believe that. You're not sorry. I'm only saying that because the way you word it, you don't want to use the word motion. So I've now identified, there's a little bit more to that first paragraph. I'm not going to really get into it because it's just me continuing what I just told you about what Haynes versus Kerner means. Therefore, I can type whatever the hell I want. I don't care if I misspell my letters, because if you want, you can file motions. There's actually a law against frivolous filing. So I can file a motion every other week about you misspelled this, lawyer. You didn't cross the T on this. You have the wrong date on there. You got the wrong thing. Okay? But they start to say, well, you've done this 25 times in a row. This is frivolous filing. Filing frivolous paperwork. So just try to make sure that your words make it sound of merit. Anyway, I'm going to the memorandum. Keep in mind they threw this paper out, but it's the way 3 papers work together. It's a game of chess. You don't need to say anything in court other than don't say what they're trying to make you say. That's really the only rule. Join the fucking link. I sent you the link. We gotta bleep out my ads too. This year we said on.
Yo, your mic keeps breaking up, bro.
All right, that's no good. So is it all splotchy and bad?
That's fine on my end.
On my end, it is. It's kind of breaking out.
It sounds like a bandwidth issue for you
That might be.
because you're both coming through clear for me.
That might be my problem. Well, that's all that matters then.
Okay, well, I'm going to try and go forward. If you don't get anything, I'm not trying to just have this be me doing a speech here because, I want input on these things. This is just something that happened. It was an interesting thing.
No,
so
keep going.
I got Got a memorandum here. It says, the view is held and maintained by the public that easement through the public artery is the primary capacity of the public roads. And the road is an artery. It's an artery of people going from point A to point B without infringing on commercially or privately owned land. So any other capacity upon the public roads is harmful by nature and requires licensing and registration along with surety in the event of liability. So does not traffic pertain to all the harmful secondary capacities requiring licensing upon the public roads? Traffic. I'm there with my property seeking easement. So I go down here. Under what legislation has access to the intended capacity of the road become contingent upon any and all private luggage or safety technology being forced into the capacity of commercial traffic? So how the hell do you say your fucking bag, this is not the paper anymore, how the hell do you say your bag is subject to search because you were walking on the road with it next to you on your person? You get what I'm saying? How the fuck do we jump to these conclusions? Man, I really gotta watch them F-bombs. Yeah, join from browser. Oh. Well, join however you want to join. Okay. As a living flesh and blood being, I need to have access to the world within my natural place of habitat, with my property to even live, right? Wouldn't you say so? Like, try to go down the road without clothes, see what happens, right? They don't like that. Anyway, if all methods outside my access to the public road would be an infringement upon both privately and commercially owned property, then why does such a detrimental artery to the world within my natural place of habitat no longer exist? Where is an alternative remedy? And when will I be reimbursed for seizure through eminent domain of the public access to the public artery? When the hell are they going to pay me back? Given that the primary capacity of the public roads is lawful, it requires no identification plates or a license. So how does a lack of identifying plates constitute as evidence of a crime? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right.
You can mute me. All you gotta do is mute me because you can hear me. You know, they actually have a case law that people tried to say is reading my plates to identify me lawful. Is it probable cause? And the court ruled that yes, it is. But why would you need to have a case like that unless, of course, no plates?
How do I mute you? The fuck?
Just shut up. Nah, just kidding. Say whatever you want to say. Okay, click on your thing right here. Click on your phone.
What's up, dude?
Stay muted. Check that out.
No, okay, you're still going.
I'm going. You're not going.
Let's see. What the fuck am I gonna say if I'm muted?
So they to push a button at the top. I don't know. Okay, facts. You got to give facts. When you give a memorandum, anytime you're doing a paper, structure it like a lawyer would. But you're not a lawyer. Just remember that. Structure it so that they can look at it and go, I can make sense of it. If you just type it in a random format, you want to mimic their vernacular. So when you're mimicking memorandum, you're giving them a platform with which to see the words you're providing. Statement of facts. My private property is not a vehicle. Statement of facts right here. My private property is non-negotiable. My private property is not required to have registration. No vehicle was ever identified or reflected on citation. All allegations present pertain to vehicles and no evidence of a vehicle exists. Okay, so I want to say something. Has anyone here owned a vehicle ever before?
Once or twice.
Not unless if
Once or
you
twice?
register it, you don't own it.
Well, what if somebody else registered it and you bought it from them? Think about that. So when you go to the store, did you buy that piece of property or did you go to buy a vehicle? Did you buy a vehicle from the dealership or did you buy the hard asset? So in order for any state or government to apply legislation to your property, the first thing they need to do is seize that property and pay you for it. Okay. So in order for your thing to become a vehicle, you either voluntarily give it to them or they seize it and apply this to it. So oftentimes people say, how do I need a license? Because I wasn't getting paid. Well, the fact that you were using their property that you gave to them voluntarily to have it be a vehicle, the fact that you have access to that for both private needs and commercial needs is your payment. Since it's in-house, that's why it's a privilege. They don't need to use money because money is actually secondary to payment. House Joint Resolution 192, where they converted money to lawful tender, legal tender, and lawful tender, right? So substance, which is a service, you're getting paid for that. But the way I got this bike is I told the guy straight up, now for my real payment, and my signature, and then I signed the paper. A week later, I got the title in the mail based on paperwork I'd filed before with the Attorney General. I got the title in the mail. So when I got that title in the mail, it was the Utah State Attorney General agreeing to paperwork I filed saying, sorry that these guys illegally tried to convert your property into a vehicle. We can't undo the creation of the instrument of conveyance, but we can give it to you so they can't hold it. That's literally what happened. So you get what I'm saying? Anytime you're in a vehicle, you basically fuck. A vehicle without plates, they can pull you over. And they're completely within probable cause. But if you can't identify that it's a vehicle, you had no probable cause to begin with. So I got pulled over, no plates. I got a citation that had no vehicle, number, VIN, model, make, none of that. Not even a year. It didn't exist. It's blind justice. The court can't see that. They see what's in the paperwork. Also important to remember, the court can't see you. The court can't hear you. The record of them hearing you that you made or that they made is a private record. The only real record of value is the papers you file. So go and file the papers, and then they're going to cast their spell of trying to get you to agree verbally, thinking that that means something. Nah, just hold your ground. File your papers and hold your ground. Don't, they're going to dupe you. They're going to be like, oh, hey, do you understand? Always ask little things. You know what I'm saying? It's a ritual to Saturn.
Right.
Kronos worship.
You try to get you to plea.
Well, it's not only that, you're just becoming trustee. You're agreeing to be subservient to order. You're agreeing to fulfill the role, that they are the ones who brought to attention that you violated something. In all reality, they're violating it. All court is equity. You got to identify the equity right off the get-go, too. I want to get on Saturn for a second. Kronos, he ate his children. So this is where human sacrifices started becoming a thing. It's based on Kronos. Now, Kronos is also time, right? And we get into this, that Saturn can be worshipped by the black cube, right? The black cube? We're all looking into one right now.
Right.
Are we not? So you're basically sacrificing your children every time you give them a phone to Kronos in order. And you can really see the effects of the accumulative sacrifices that those kids have been forced to undertake with these digital devices, right? Think where humanity's at right now.
That's too
We messed up. Anyway, so I filed this thing. I was basically telling them that I'm going to read the last part because I like the last part. Summary. Due to lack of subject matter, in other words, they didn't have proof of a vehicle. There's no subject matter. And there was no proof that they had the authority to pull me over on my private property because that's what the roads are made for. So if I'm advertising and I have a plate on the back that's not registered, I can't undo the fact that it's already a vehicle and say it's not a vehicle in this capacity. because it's not private property, right? They already have proof of it is a vehicle. But anyway, they didn't have proof it was a vehicle, therefore they had no proof to say, if you can't identify it as a vehicle with your eye, which you legally can't, how could you use that as probable cause to pull me over? Anyway, due to lack of subject matter and probable cause, I petitioned this court to dismiss all allegations against my name in all capital letters, and in redemption, correct the records, and the fiduciary, as appointed by the court clerk, shall investigate, and that's the judge, and report to the U.S. Attorney General any and all acts which may be evidence of felonious acts as committed to include, but not limited to. Remember, if they're trying to use my name to put money down on a court case against me, that's not in my best interest. And I've already proven that I'm not legally dead or lost at sea, you know? So now it is a felony. I'm giving him an easy way out with the first paper. That's why I didn't want case laws. I'm trying to give the judge an opportunity to get paid the same way that you guys are learning all this trust stuff. This is how the judges and courts get paid. They are literally acting as fiduciary, and they are trustee. The court clerk appointed that judge as trustee over your case when they said, we're going to put it before this judge. So, because I've tried to appoint a judge as trustee before. I've had some interesting times appointing a judge as trustee. I've had some, I'm not going to lie, fun times in court. Anyway, it's better if I just act as though we already knew the judge was appointed as trustee, rather than me trying to appoint the judge, because it won't work. Because I can't appoint somebody to be trustee when they're already fulfilling the role of trusteeship. True, I can appoint any public servant as trustee, and they can fulfill it no matter their vocation. However, if they're already occupying a position of trustee, you know, they can't serve two masters. You can't do it. So anyway, I said this. As appointed by the court clerk, the trustee, shall investigate and report to the U.S. Attorney General, blah, blah, all acts, blah, blah, blah. Okay, such as, limited to, that's where we're at. Any and all GSA bonds issued against the estate of my name in all capital letters by parties known or unknown as qualified heirs, quotation marks, and fill out the required IRS forms 706 and 709, and any and all vouchers, quotation, charged against my name in all capital letters, account number, and return the value of said vouchers to the estate of my name through routing number. I get him a freaking routing number and a bank account number. And continue to report any other felonies or civil torts committed by parties known or unknown. And I just took this from another paper just to add to it, even though I think that was good enough there. I said, public servant fiduciary / trustee, as appointed by the court clerk, is hereby authorized to use the private exemption of the name the way I wrote the paper as, E, the name in all capital letters and the account number, for adjustments and set off this instant matter case number, which is accepted for value and return for settlement. Fiduciary trustee is to issue the appropriate IRS 1099 forms and to be in compliance with all revenue requirements in this matter timely and return appropriate copies to me, the way I wrote the paper, care of my address. No zip code, non-domestic. So it's like care of the mailbox located in the state of Utah on Smithfield City.
You got a quick tip in your head. That's cutting into your mic there, I think.
Gotcha.
That's where it's coming from.
But so basically, I hope you get the gist of that one. I filed that one to get them on edge. By the time I got to court, the prosecutor was losing the shit. He tried to file a paper in return saying that I'm questioning their jurisdiction. You know, he's saying there's no subject matter jurisdiction. And he was going to go on all about how the court had complete authority to see the court case. Because check it out. So Smithfield City lost their court. So normally if they want to sue me, they do it in their own court. But since they lost their court, they had to go to district. So he thought that I was saying the district court couldn't hear this matter. When in all reality, I know better. And I know that if Smithfield had a court, Smithfield court couldn't hear this matter. But the district court could, because they're a state-backed court. They have every right to deal with matters with privileges issued by the state. Right? Private corporation cannot, and there's case law against that. So I basically set it up and went into court, and he wanted to argue that I was saying that there was no subject matter jurisdiction. And I was like, hell no, that ain't what I'm saying. The judge is on my side, and I'm like, what I'm saying is clearly my private property cannot be a vehicle. It cannot be two things at once. We all know this is true. So now you got to prove that it's a vehicle. You know, and I had other people there with me in court, and they saw this, and the prosecutor was all flustered, and he was not having a good time. Anyway, they said for another matter, I left. You know, they obviously denied my motion because the judge decided it's a matter of facts. So we'll give the prosecution the opportunity to try to prove that it is a vehicle, which couldn't be done because the way I got the bike. Anyway, I'm telling you how they're set up, what they think is going on here. I asked for money. I gave them a way out. I gave them an easy way out. They didn't want to play that way. So the next thing I did is I realized something. Where's my notice of court? My ducks are already out of a row. Shit. That didn't last long. I'm looking for the notice of court I filed. I think anyone who ever goes to court, especially if we're doing all this trust stuff, okay, if you really want to get into it, never go into court without giving a notice to the court. A notice, even though it may be a tool, it's not a tool of the court, it's a tool of the public. A notice to the court is to inform the court or any parties involved in this matter, any and all parties, of any potential litigation or liabilities they may suffer from continuing this. So anything that may affect their interests. So when you hear here it is. Look at that. When you hear this, you realize this is something that everybody wants to file. It doesn't have to be worded this way. You just want to let the court know. Quit using my stuff illegally or you'll be sued. That way, when you continue in court, they can't say, we didn't know we couldn't do that. We presumed because you kept coming in here and smiling and nodding.
Is that this one? Is that this one I sent you?
I'm going to check that out real fast.
So I'm pretty sure it is.
That is the one. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, I've formatted it for general use.
Very nice. I've got a lot. One we really need to do that with is my declaration of observation of status, because that is what made all this stuff possible. That is literally why I got an honorable discharge from the military, because I got an ID, which is registered with the draft. This is why every single time I go to court and they want to bump up my charges for priors, they can't legally do it because they have to have a record of the priors, but they don't exist. They have to destroy these records. The first time I ever went to jail, they kept sliding the slot open and be like, give us your social, give us your social. Because they couldn't even prove I existed because everything got turned into a skeletal file. You know, I've gone into court and I've literally told them I'm not that guy. You know, and I argued with them for 6 fucking months about that. They had to prove I was that guy. Well, isn't this a picture of you? Yeah, that's a picture of me, but you attached it to that name, and that name isn't me. Okay, so we went to the notice. I gave them a notice. Now think of what that did. That got them all stumbled up and they're all thinking that I'm trying to ask for more money now and being more harsh. The first one, I was like, I'll allow you to investigate it so that I'm being coy with the court so they don't have to tell the public literally the fraud they're involved in. They didn't want to do it. So now I call them out on the fraud and I say, do not commit the fraud or else. But while this is going on, I want to remind you. I don't need to remind you though, but I want to. There's a little sign on the door in our public courthouse that says, if you are not special like us, you cannot have your electronic device on in these rooms. Okay? Well, being a member of the public, what do? We record stuff with our little electronic device. That's our evidence. So if they're telling me I'm not allowed to have my evidence machine in there, then they own a monopoly on all digital platforms of evidence in my defense. So I reminded them, I have audio. If we're going to trial, I have audio recording I want to give to the court. I need instructions how to give you my medium. I can't give you USB because I could hack your system if I gave you a USB, right? So they acknowledged, they said, we'll email you instructions. That's important, right? Then they gave me a deadline. Okay? Have your evidence submitted by this deadline. Well, so I filed that notice to the court 3 days before my deadline. I still had not received an email. So even though I'm fighting the legal side of things, the actual thing that happened is they're denying me a right to a fair trial. I mean, are they not?
That's
You can't. So I let a few more days go by, and while I was filing this paper, I reminded the clerk that they were supposed to email me. And what she did is she asked me and read back to me my email address to verify it and said, we will get that email to you. Well, 3 days later, the deadline was there. Okay, the deadline for me submitting evidence had come and gone. Of course, I'd already emailed the prosecutor everything I had that I'm going to use and telling him there's much more I need to use, but I'm waiting for the court to give me the instructions. So how about you give me the instructions so we can proceed? I'm sure you know how, Mr. Prosecutor, right? Did I get a response? Exactly. No, I did not.
Of course not.
So anyway, 6 days later is my deadline. I have to file papers. Once again, I hope this doesn't gargle my sound. I got my ducks even further out of a row. Here we go. I then filed this. And keep in mind, even though it includes subject matter to the money that I'm talking about in all my other documents, this one is just a little slap in the face to the judge. So the first one is putting the prosecutor in hot water. Do not touch my money or else, right? Basically, when we go to court next, someone's going to get punched in the nuts. So I set it up to punch the prosecutor in the nuts. But then now I filed a paper to punch the court in the nuts. And I was going to let them decide who was going to take the punch. Of course, the judge are going to say it's him, which is good because that's where my money's at. That's what I'm claiming. So this next paper, this is great. Petition for dismissal and reimbursement for dereliction of duty resulting in due process and Sixth Amendment violations. That hit the 14th Amendment they're so proud of and the Sixth Amendment. You're telling me I'm not allowed to present evidence because I'm not special like you guys, right? Yeah. The funny thing is, when you get to a trial, they have cords and everything for you to plug in your computer. You know? They didn't tell you that. They won't, you know? Anyway, how's that not dereliction of duty? They were going to email me. They didn't. So once again, I started the thing the same way I always do. That same header. I'm telling them who it is, who I am, what type of appearance I'm making, and that you can't blame me for the way I wrote it. And then next thing I do is I go to statement of facts. So statement of facts. Rights to a fair trial have been compromised due I requested the format the court would require me to admit my record into evidence. I was informed that I would receive an email with instructions to do so, and then I put in parentheses because they give you the court, they give you the information. Tape number, courtroom 1, tape room or tape count 934 through 952. So there's an audio log, and I called them out on it, even though it's theirs. This did happen. I then said I provided an email address to the court before I left the courtroom. Next fact, a deadline was set forth by the court to provide all evidence by the date. I already told you guys the story. I'm just telling them the facts of what I already told you guys. It's what happened. On August 11th, I told the court clerk. So once again, same fact, same thing, you know. August 14th, I emailed the prosecutor. That's the next fact. The due date has now come and passed, and due to no fault of my own, I am now not able to submit key evidence crucial to my defense. I can't do that, right?
Right.
That's pretty messed up. But due to the court's failure, summary, due to the court's failure to provide timely instructions, I was unable to submit critical audio evidence before the court's deadline for evidence submission, which occurred on this date. This has severely prejudiced any ability to present a complete defense or case. The court's inaction constitutes a dereliction of duty, resulting in the following: a violation of the right of due process under 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 7 of the Utah Constitution, which guaranteed a fair opportunity to be heard and present evidence, and a violation to the right of a fair trial under the 6th Amendment to the United States Constitution, as applicable to state proceedings through the 14th Amendment and Article 1, Section 12 of the Utah Constitution, by denying the ability to effectively present evidence critical to the case. I hereby petition that this matter be dismissed and that all bonds, vouchers, or any other securities in this matter unlawfully drawn against the estate of me be returned in total value. Keep in mind, I still slid it in there. You know,
Hell yeah.
I want my money. Alternatively, if dismissal is denied, I would petition that I be allowed an additional 30 days to provide the proper format to which my file my audio recording, and that I be provided signed but otherwise blank subpoena as per Utah Rule of Civil Procedure 45 parentheses A parentheses 2, that I might gather other vital evidence to my defense. Okay. And then I start explaining. I go to definitions of what a due process violation is, of what a Sixth Amendment violation is. And then I include the Utah rules of civil procedure. So I was talking about if I want to sue you, I got to put money down. That money needs to be able to pay when you go to the court clerk and say, hey, I'm the one being accused. I don't have money to defend myself against this. I need to subpoena these guys to prove my claim. They have to provide it to you backed by the original money put down. That's the freaking law. They never will give you signed blank subpoenas, though. And if they ever did, I told them if they don't want to dismiss, they can give me those under this rule. So then they'd have to, because I'm already accusing them of dereliction of duty, right? It's a big slap in the face. They're going to say we aren't breaking the rules. And then you want to break the rules right after? No. I already got these guys in an interlocutory appeal over stupid stuff like this. Online, I went to court. I brought my book. I brought all my papers. I showed up. I started getting harassed right at the door by the bailiff. He's like, take your belt off. Taking my belt off. That's beyond your scope, dude. You know, it's already beyond your scope. This is a public building. You're violating my Fourth Amendment right to even come into here. Right. So I started getting into it about that. And I started saying, if you guys need to check every one of us for weapons, you're either A, saying that we're already criminals, therefore there is no potential for us to be innocent in these courtrooms. You're already biased against us. Or B, you're committing action that you feel that you need to protect yourself from the public. This is our building. We don't come in here with weapons. So the fact that you think you need to secure us, you get what I'm talking about? If you need to secure me before you let me come into the thing you're forcing me to come to because you're afraid that I might retaliate against you, well, maybe what you're doing is wrong in the first place. Right? But anyway, so I started arguing with him. I went upstairs, and there I sit with my book, with my everything. Courtroom's locked. Up comes a different prosecutor because the original one wanted to back out from this. Right? So the underling comes, and with him comes the officer to sit down as a witness. Now, I already told this officer to his face what happens when this happens like it always does, and they deny it for some frivolous reason so they don't have to give me disposition. You know, what is going to happen to remedy this when they don't let you be a witness and they just dismiss it without giving me the papers that say why they dismissed it because I was right? Do you get sued? Right? It's basically what it's coming down to. And I am going to sue the guy. I intend to. I got to get on it. Anyway, we all show up. We go into court. Before I could even speak, legally, the judge has to assess my latest motion first. That is the law, right? Yes. So what she says is, before we're going to assess that, remember, before we're going to assess that, did either of you guys certify your evidence with the court by the first due date? We emailed each other. That's what everybody does. Oh, yeah, you emailed each other, but you didn't certify with the court. So I'm not going to let anybody submit evidence. So under Rule 16. So since there's no evidence to be submitted, I got to dismiss this case. And the officer sat there and watched exactly what I said was going to happen unfold before his very eyes. You see, you know, they set it up. They were down. That's what I'm saying. You go in there and you ask about your money. That's all you need to ask about. Give me my money. Where's my money? Call out the money. And don't go over anything else. Right? Because if they made these things in secrecy, it's already against you. If you can make them acknowledge in paperwork that they violated their order by not giving you signed blank subpoenas and they give it to you, what's the next step you think I would have done? I would have subpoenaed them for the audio records. I would have subpoenaed every single bond involved in this matter. I would have, you know, they would not have been happy. I'd be like, I need 500 of them. Bond can pay for it.
Right. That's classic.
Yeah. I mean, the only way you're ever going to win in any court is by suiting the judge's agenda. So the first thing I did was give him a way out to get paid. Yeah, the prosecutor would eat a bag and have to pay me the money, but the court would get paid for filing the proper paperwork saying this guy was committing fraud and we act as trustee. They would get paid the same amount of money I got paid. That's honorable. They didn't want to do it honorable. So we went to the next step. And now I say any and all parties, you're not allowed to touch it. Because if you're even making it a secret, then it's a lie that you're got a claim to it in the first place. You're not a qualified heir, right? Then I took everybody's money. You get where I'm going. And just because they'll do it, they'll set themselves up every time. If you start trying to talk about the money. What's the first thing you're going to do? They're going to come up with a bullshit reason to try and hem you up, right? That is what I used. There's one every single time. If you're looking and you're not succumbing to human impulse, which is the first 30 seconds after the fearful action, right? And you're all, oh shit, what's going on with my life? Right? If you can get past the human impulse and listen to what they're saying, you can always rebut that and deflect it back in their face because they came at you with negative intent. This is chess. It's like them attacking without looking what pieces you've set up around you. That's why he who loses honor first loses. It's not that the game's immediately over. It's just your opponent's not thinking, you know, and you know yourself and you know your opponent at that point, and therefore you've already won.
Right.
Make sure you don't react. Make sure you act. Catch them in their lies. Put it in paperwork in the back. We never said that. Yeah, why do you think we're here? You said that. Let's look and see when you said that. I know that's not the victory that we all want, right? But that's a victory that I think is easily obtainable.
Yeah. And
this is the second time.
yeah, it's definitely proof of concept. I mean, really anything where they're being the aggressor, if we can make it go away to get back to our lives, that's a win.
Lives, back to our lives. What is that?
Not dealing with them.
Back to your order. Back to what we designed for you.
Right.
There are variables that I can choose, but they're not too broad, against order. Check this out. Human beings used to be able to build a tower that almost reached space out of alligator shit and mud that pissed God off that he's like, we're going to spray chemicals in here and make you guys dumb and not be able to talk to each other anymore. Right? We used to be able to do that stuff until order started making humans realize there's things they can't do. They call it physics. Before physics, the human mind didn't know it couldn't do that, so they did it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why people like drugs, because it expands the mind, it opens the mind, and you're in a state of chaos, which is freedom. You're not constricted. I mean, you can see through wooden doors at that point. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, this did very quickly go to a whole legal thing. But I want to take it a little farther. Anything I say in court or anything I do in court, it's just that is the easiest place to cast spells. Okay? They already have the ritual chamber. All the circles are drawn. Everything is there that you need. The materials, the person in the robes, everything you need to cast a spell is in court. All these spells apply everywhere else, and it's sacred geometry. It literally is, because 3 separate parties, okay, 3 90-degree angles making a pyramid. Not a pyramid, but it's a pyramid. You know what I'm talking about? You ever seen that? A three-face pyramid out of 3 90-degree angles.
Uh-huh.
Now, this is Son, Father, Holy Ghost. This is beneficiary, trustee, executor. This is board of directors, stockholder, employee. This is even an ID that someone sold you. This, in ideology, this is affect, infect, and effect. Right? Shit. What is shit? It's a word that its roots come back to skeid, it's an Eastern word, right? Middle Eastern word, or even farther. I don't think it's Sanskrit, but it's an old word. But it means to divide or separate. This is where science and the word shit come from. They originate back to this word skeid. Now, when I call an officer a piece of shit, he literally is dividing and separating the public from the public servant with his actions. He is 100% a piece of shit, and I don't think I need to apologize or that that's something that I can't have played as evidence. I'm not being demeaning to the guy. I'm calling out his actions exactly what it is. But so now when I say shit, check this out. There is a pile of shit here. Now, The affect is that it is a pile of shit. Now, say that I piss next to it, and this pile of shit is now acting as a wall, right? So it's all relative to perspective, but instead of it being a pile of shit, it is a wall of shit. The shit wall. Look at our shit wall. Okay. Now, when I'm telling you about this, I am taking the affect and I am infecting you with the effect. Right? The effect is that it's stopping the piss from going from one side to the other. Right? Funny how the perspective has now changed on the simple division and separation, which is shit. That's why I'm using the word shit, and that's why it's a wall made out of shit, because it's the separation and division. So when you go to court, it's the same thing. Are you the affector, the infector, or the effect? Right? The first thing you do, like even when you watch a show or you hear someone's conversation, if you haven't identified which of the trinary you are, right? If you haven't decided to be the beneficiary, the one who observes, because, and this is coming from me, this is Rich coming from me because I like to talk, right? And I'm not listening, I'm denying myself the whole game, right? It's on how you play the triangle. Let's see here. The first thing you do when you identify, you're identifying boundary. If you identify that you're there to benefit, you're not going to start reacting and letting emotion take control of you. You're going to hear the scenario and you're going to regulate how it happens. Right? So here's another one. There are many choices we make in life to live. We often take the path of least resistance versus the hard path. And the way we take the hard path is because we acknowledge that we want to take the hard path, right? Now, that can be negative in itself. You get a depressing thought. Now, rather than acknowledging the depressing thought, which is a good thing because you can go, oh, now I know where to go from here. Why am I having this thought? We tend to like to ride in the path of least resistance. So we follow in the reaction. We start reacting. So obviously we become the employee of the divine. We become what would be called the Holy Ghost rather than the beneficiary, the Son, because you are allowing the capacity for the emotion to exist for whoever the beneficiary is. The beneficiary is you crying up in your own little head, not being you, because your body is being taken over by an entity that is designed to help you exist in this corporeal world, if that makes any sense. The body's autopilot.
Yeah.
Like you got to make a choice.
You should check out that last video in Interesting Perspectives if you haven't yet.
Yeah, I did 2 jobs today and then a meeting. I will get to it. I am trying to check these things out. You know, I like the fact, you know, I got my facts checked earlier today, which was good because I'm like resourcing a memory of like something I watched or read like 12 years ago. I don't know what it is, but you got to realize sometimes the numbers don't matter, right? So I often like to say this, the eyeball. The eyeball is the prime example of this trinity. The reason is because everything that the eye sees is on a square platform through this triangle. You're looking from the point, the top point, the curvature of the eye, right? And you're looking out into the square, right? Now, when you first see something, the very first observation of that object, in the fastest, smallest unit of anything, the Planck constant, right? A certain amount of data is sent, a certain amount of data is received. Now, the data that did not come back, that stuck to the object you looked at, defines the object. That is the visual density of the object. So the first thing I saw was a can. Now let's say another moment goes by. That's a can of beer. I'm now adding more density, but the density only exists based on how much energy I put into the observation of that object. You know what I'm saying there? No, that's a red lighter with a busted up piece on the top and it's got a scrape on the bottom. Well, how much time, how many Planck's constants, and how much of your awareness was put into that thing to make it so visually dense? You know what I'm talking about? Same thing with any ideas. Now, if I'm thinking an idea about something and someone else is thinking a similar idea, or we're under the umbrella of an ideology, these ideas also have density, right? Just like there's more density to the object I chose to look at. I get tripping on mushrooms. You're like, look at my hands, man. You never look at your hands. You never look at your freaking phone. You're like, this phone is weird. You know, you're adding more visual density to these things. Now, the thing about dense objects is gravity exists, even on thought planes. So the more you have invested into an idea, a daydream, a negative worry, the more you have invested, the bigger that density is, the easier it is for you to get sucked into that gravity well of that idea because you weren't applying the force of thought. Right? The more you worry about it, the more you're going to worry about it. Kind of a weird way to get to that. By the way, I don't even know where I'm going. I'm just talking, like I said. that. Sorry to put you guys on the spot.
All right, where else were we? Topics. Time relative to the density of an idea.
Yeah, that was me. When you
That's
said
right.
that, I was going to get onto it. So the human eye. We're back on the human eye. I guess I was in the right spot.
Yeah.
The human eye, once again, the numbers don't matter, but I do believe this is the right number, is a 577 megapixel camera. Right? And even if those numbers are wrong, it still takes still frames. It's like, right? It's just really freaking fast.
Yeah.
Now,
If you eat a bunch of 25i, it turns really slow.
so you don't ever see what you don't ever notice you blinked, right?
Yeah.
So the brain automatically fills in the stuff that you didn't see, but you got to realize the brain is already filling in everything you didn't see anyway. So if the brain saw the ball here in one motion, and then the next still frame the ball was here, it never saw the ball travel. The brain actually processed and created the outcome of the object for you. Now, keep in mind, this is how perception works. If you allow yourself to rely on the de facto thing that you thought you saw, the de facto thing you thought you saw might be the thing that actually happens because you didn't apply anything else into it and there wasn't enough. You know, we're talking about principles of least action here. We're talking about how long it takes for light to bounce off your eye and go to another thing. So this is how memories are born too. Okay. You won't be able to have memories until the brain is able to create a hallucination program to render what it thinks it saw. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, when we look at something, are we looking at it? Are we perceiving it? Are we choosing what we saw? Because you can choose what you saw, right? You can say, that was a bad thing. Or you can say, that was a good thing. And each one of those things will change where you stand on your next choice. Even if it's the same thing that happened, you know, even if the same action is what led you to think one thing or the other. Like, so I want to say every single action you commit can have 1,000 different intents why you committed it. Right? But it's the same spell. Because I'm trying to get on magic here. I'm trying to say that the eye taking still frames and the fact that the brain creates it in its mind, you know, it fills in that blank. Oftentimes you can cause that thing to happen. Like this is literally how you're casting the spell, right? You're letting it happen by not choosing and letting the path of least resistance take place. Because you could think, like, is this any of this making sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Something. This is important to define the border. Like if I want to cast a spell, say it's a 3-minute spell, how much of my spell needs to exist as a thought and how much of it needs to be in action? Because the input needs to be equal to the output. If I have too much input, I will have a bad vecular angle, if that's the right words. It sounds cool. Anyway, you know, we're trying to get a good bounce. You know, so if you hit it, you have too much, you'll go this way. It can literally be summed up as light going into the accretion disk of a black hole. Some light that's traveling at the correct wavelength when it hits that event horizon will be slingshotted out of the black hole.
Yeah.
Right? That's your only escape. Our lives literally are this third dimensional space we live in literally is a black hole, and your awareness is the light. Sometimes we're aware, sometimes we're not aware. But what are we most? We're unaware. Now, in the subconscious, you're going to cast more spells than you ever would when you're conscious, because when you're conscious, you got this thing called order telling you you can't cast spells. So all the stupid stuff, like the real stupid things, you know what I'm saying? Someone's throwing the bottle, it lands in the thing the right way when the guy's walking by, all the little stupid things, right? These are spells of the preceding eye on autopilot. These are literally minds perceiving something into the vacuum that is three-dimensional space. The sun is not just the sun. The sun is all the space the sun will or ever has occupied all at once in order to exist in the third dimension. Okay? In order to be, you have to have the ability not to be. And the parts of you that aren't, like the only part of you that is at any given moment is 1% of the whole equation. The vacuum space, that's 99% of the equation. Anywhere you will go, anywhere you will be, any thought you will have, anywhere you want, if that's making any sense. Man, I don't know. I think I'm going off on a tangent. So
It makes sense on a really broad level. That's definitely a little easier to understand with an expanded mind.
well, I could definitely see that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to say, so some people do cast spells, and a spell is a very interesting thing. And I define that like anything that you make a choice in, that's a spell. Because you actually have to actively make the choice, and the surroundings that encompass the choice are the border of the spell. Like you want to sit in your sand, you want to draw your circles around you. Well, sometimes that is you're in the road and it's traffic.
If you're not making a spell, you're existing in somebody else's.
Exactly.
Or something else's.
And you can be doing both. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of times you are doing both. So Terry Goodtime, he writes some good books there. He has wrote some good books. And in this, you realize that people living in a certain region are the blood for a blood spell, the shape of the city. So while they're living every day and engaging in their commerce, they're fulfilling the shape of the particular spell they're trying to cast. And I do believe shapes are very important in spells. I personally believe that if you want to affect somebody with like a curse, or you want to do something that engages in ideology or something of the non-tangible realm that affects us all, I hope that makes sense. What I mean by non-tangible: imagination, thoughts, or perception, just the things that exist in your head.
Yeah.
That other beings have an effect on. Okay. If you want to make that kind of spell, you use a pentagram. You use a 5-pointed star. It's just the way that it resonates. Music is based on the 5-pointed star. And tell me music doesn't make you feel like that. Oftentimes, I like to say sugar is the most abused drug, but in all reality, music is the most abused drug. And please give me more. I wouldn't be here for this whole human being experiment if it wasn't for the music. Just letting you know. Oh man, I got 10% battery. It seems like I can get a
So true.
going.
Well, I will. I got a jet.
Yeah.
We'll leave on this note. I know, I'm sure we've all heard the saying that if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to leave that room. And I definitely enjoy being in this room because I know right now that I'm not the most intelligent man in this room. And I appreciate both of you so much. God bless.
And watch
a good night.
Watch the last video because it talks about that. The guy you think might be dumb might have some kind of information that's going to blow your freaking mind.
Yeah,
often. Intelligence is made up.
Right, facts, dude.
It's in there. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for joining.
Guys. Yeah, we'll see you again.
All right.
All right. One.
Yeah, very interesting. It really did go a court path, which is all right. Sometimes the other paths they're hard to get. I lose my train of thought. It's actually hard to convey things in words that are designed to make you not convey those things.
Yeah.
Which I think English is.
Well, absolutely. And that's how the court systems operate. That's why they're as effective as they are, because that's like their foundational principle.
Which is fun. Their words change. Like
Yeah.
you're saying, their words literally. So what it means today is not what it means tomorrow.
Nope. Nope. That's why there's what 12 editions of Black's Law Dictionary.
Man, owning a book, owning one book of every edition is not a bad idea because depending on what case you're trying to present, use the words you want to use. Literally,
Yeah.
pick the book you want, go in with the book, be like, these are the words we're using today. Well, we don't want to use those words. Well, where's your book?
Right. Well, and it's also pertinent just to, I mean, that's part of how case law can be used to your advantage. Is there's gotten to be so much of it, and it's so arduous and so complex that any argument you want to make, there is a case law for it.
It's when you use case law, it is very important to know that where you're not a lawyer, you need to include a reference to that full case, word for word. And you need to let the court know that because I'm using this case and I'm not a lawyer, I have to read it to you word for word so you can understand what I mean by it. Because with lawyers, they just assume, oh, I know what you mean by that case. With us, they're like, you took 3 quotes out of that case and put it to your means that you found on the internet. That's what they think.
Yeah.
That's how they act and how they presume. So
Yeah.
you let them know. If you want to play hardball, we need a trial, and it's got to be a 4-day trial because I got 23 cases, and I'm making sure you know what I mean by the case. No presumptions here. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah. That's good advice. Indeed. And let's see
Except it
what else do we have? Oh yeah,
waste of time.
everybody's talking about all this censorship of speech and everything else is going on, and then especially in the protest crowds, like, oh, we're just protesting this and that. It's like, well, yeah, but you're also funded protesters, so your speech is being paid for, which means that it's not really free if there's a monetary assessment to it. So does that really qualify as free speech that's protected?
I say no.
It
When
doesn't
you're
sound like
employed,
it.
you follow the policy. Yeah, you follow the policy. And the policy is the agenda there. So, you know what I'm saying? You literally are following the policy. You don't care about abortions. You care about that they paid you to care about abortions.
Yeah.
What I often say about books, when you read a book to try to get the information that guy has, well, you're only going to get the information that could have been marketed in a book. You're literally not going to be able to get the data because he wants to sell another book. Think about that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
there's
that,
a there that's like the whole basis of I would say Instagram and social media marketing. It's like click and watch this fucking hour video where we don't tell you anything, and just try to hype a product to get you to or information that we're trying to
let me
get
get
you to
one of
buy.
them.
So it's like, well, if you,
Hey,
but I want the information. I don't want to waste my time watching an hour of you talking about this information. Why don't you just get the hell out of the way and show me the link where I can buy it?
this, that's this, everything right there. That's the same foundation for music too, of what becomes mainstream music. Do you get what I'm saying? What is, because this is a music channel as well. I really like to be music channel because I like music. That's
Yeah.
all my spells are based on music, frequencies and waves and harmonics and resignation. But what they allow you to buy, like what determined if it was a good bad back in the day before the internet? It said everybody was listening to it. But because everybody's listening to it, does that mean it's good? You
Well,
know what I'm saying?
it's the good sense, common sense dichotomy. Like everybody says common sense, this and that. And it's like, well, look around at the world right now. Is common sense really what you're after? Because I'd rather abide the higher standard and go for good sense.
So I posted a video here. It was a Veritasium video. And I do like some Veritasium videos. He's got a good way of explaining things. Now, that one about you're only 6 steps away from any other human, right? You met their cousins, uncles, nephews, grandfather.
Yeah.
There's just a whole thing going into that. Well, that same thing can apply to whatever it was that we were talking about before in some way in ice space. I'm a space case right
Yeah.
there. I'm a space case and I lost it. That's all right. We do enough of these videos, it'll all be in there.
It's. Oh, I mean, a lot. I don't care if it's redundant. I don't care if it's in there a lot of times. And if it's that's what it takes to get the understanding. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, it took me a couple years to really gain the depth of understanding on some of the things you've been talking about to me this whole time. And not that I didn't get it then, it just didn't stick, you know? So it's like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to get to where I get these principles and I can start to explain them myself.
The Tablet of Thoth. It is said that you won't gain the information by reading it once, but by gaining it 100 times. Like if you read a book and then reread that book, and there's certain visions you remember from that book to get more fulfillment when you reread it the second time. You're like, that wasn't in there before, you know?
Same thing with movies.
So then again, is redundancy real? Or is that another one of them trick vernacular words that order has put upon us? You know, they trick us into being sorry instead of apologetic, right? So why wouldn't they trick us into thinking that this is redundant? You can't talk about that. You talked about it before. Well, everything that's ever been talked about has been talked about before. There's
True.
a reason we keep talking about it.
Valid.
It's like science. Are we going to keep testing the fundaments? You're right. We're going to test fundaments for every experiment. You have to test the fundaments. There's no redundancy there. Is gravity still the same strength as it was an hour ago?
Not likely. Not precisely, anyway.
So in music, the human ear can actually hear wrongness because music is based on a mathematical sequence within the pentagram, how things can bounce around, how sound can bounce around. That there, when you apply a mathematical equation, which conditions the spell to the nature of how it affects you. Is it supposed to make you feel happy? Is it supposed to make you feel sad? Is it supposed to make you feel melancholy? You know, what is the song supposed to do? Are we using the words to do that, or are we using the composition of the acoustics?
Yeah.
Now, the reason that I'm bringing that up, if I can rewind, pentagram, spell, weird magic. I'd rather be a wizard than a magician, just saying, by the way. Wizards are allowed to forget whatever the hell it was they're talking about. Magicians need to be refined and practiced so they can get that $3 for the cup game they played. Oh, man, where am I at? All right, it's your turn. I lost it.
My turn. Where are we at next? Let's see here. Function of the subconscious. I don't know. I think that one requires its own whole little time block.
All right, there is a lot on that too, because how many bits of data? Once again, the numbers could be wrong. Don't quote me on this, but there's like 200 billion bits of data in the subconscious every second, and there's only like 12 or 10 bits of data in the conscious at any second.
I mean, some similar ratio at least, yeah. But that's a lot of what the practice of attention in meditation is about, is being able to expand the conscious ability to hold more simultaneously. You're expanding the bus width. You're building more neurons on the same bus path so you can expand it out to a 64-bit processor instead of the 8-bit processor, you know?
See, it's interesting because so not everybody gets the same meditation.
No.
If you don't know what it is you're trying to get when you're meditating, then you're just quieting the mind and you're just being quiet for 30 minutes with the group. But there's so many different degrees of that between achieving what you're trying to achieve or here and here and here and here, or then I'm just being quiet with the group because I don't know what meditation is at all.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to know, to choose which type of meditation you're making, especially with music. Music is also a tool of meditation.
100%. Or maybe not even necessarily meditation, but tuning the mind
So
tuning the
yeah,
mind to the radio station of reception, to the channel that you want. Like I prefer chanting. It's a little simpler. It's a little
yeah,
bit
but also
more
chanting also does more for the body. It's more in tune. You're resonating it in every cell as you make that sound.
yeah, 100%. I've had every cell tell me that they love me simultaneously. It was a glorious experience. Like,
It's gotta be.
it's it's wild. Like, imagine every single cell in your body, like on a unison loudspeaker, just not even shouting or anything, but just just saying, just expressing that. It's like it's blissful.
I want you to hold on to that because any technology that exists is something man-made to help him do what he was already capable of easier.
Yeah.
So I say that with med beds. So being in harmony and resonancy, anything will resonate. When you hit a note, if I hit an A string and I put my guitar next to a bunch of other A strings, all the other A strings are going to vibrate a little. So when your thought resonates in your mind for the positive growth and health, every single cell will resonate just like you said. And this is the key to controlling your body and being healthy. None of this, I went to a doctor who's practicing medicine to stud on me shit. You know what I'm saying? This is literally, this is the key. You should already know. It's your body. You're living in the thing, you know?
Yeah.
I got a pain in my shoulder every single time I move it, you know? Well, figure out why. What are you doing? What did you cause that for, you know?
Yeah.
And then you want to heal it? Well, find out what the thing is, you know, with your body, feel it within your body, and then meditate on that. Here's a prime example. You get a cut, a deep cut, and you start caring for it and taking for it, and you think in your mind, I hope this doesn't get infected. Okay? Now, a thought that's a bad thought that doesn't happen is a good thing. So in order for my hand to heal properly, I had to have the thought which pushed me to take care of the hand so it didn't get infected of what if it gets infected. That's a prime example of taking, in order to cast the full spell of healing properly, of doing the proper things based on the negative thought.
Well, and if you get into the subconscious operation of those statements, like what if it gets infected is going to spurn more action and leave less of a negative impact on the subconscious mind. When you say, I hope it doesn't, the subconscious mind, as far as we've been able to determine at this point in time, doesn't hear the not. And so it's hearing, I hope it gets infected.
Yeah, you open the door by not saying that it won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you open the door like it's going to, so I hope it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Reverse negatives, double negatives.
well, any negatives at all, like because you think you're saying one thing and it's absorbed in a different way, like just skip that altogether and say it will be healthy and whole, and skip all the negative.
Yes, but the reason that I'm not so keen to do that, like I get the idea and principles, but it's my firm belief that you need to have a correct equation of all factors. So you need to have some of the negative. It can't just be sugar and spice and everything nice. No, you need some fucking Tabasco up in that bitch. You know, you gotta, you know, you gotta have the interchanging opposed conditions to get the correct spell. Like, you know what I'm saying?
You have to abide the wave.
Because the one thing I get why, it's because your interpretation of the finalized condition of your spell may not be the correct interpretation because you were biased the whole way through. So yeah, you can heal yourself with that spell, but did you heal yourself as effectively as you could have had you explored it? So you're allowing its negative capacity to exist. And in the third dimension, you need to have the 99 isn't. You know, you need the 99% isn't. Does that make any sense there? Sometimes knowing where you could have gone wrong in your thought, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Well,
And keep in mind.
But also there is, like you were saying earlier, there has to be equal input and output. There has to be the action. Like you can say whatever you want, as much as you want, but if there's no action to balance out the thought, then you're not having that, you're not abiding the wave, the natural form.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's multiple quadrants that you got to balance before you even hit this point. Okay, this is the spell cast. This is you. This right here is you casting the spell. Now this part is you. This is the observation point. So as you're coming here, how much of this is thought? How much of this is action? And what condition is each one of those particles at? So that when it reaches here, I get the correct angle to cast the spell I want. Now, so in my mind, I know that if I had all these crazy superpowers I'm trying to get, right? If I had all this crazy stuff, I know why I want the powers. It's so I can abuse them, right? I resolve this injustice. Well, in all reality, that's why I don't have the powers, right? Because you're already thinking about something that is not what the use of the powers is about. So how can I say I know? This is why I like wizardry over magicianship. Because a magician uses low magic. I'm not going to say dark or light. I'm going to say low magic because it's magic of deception. It's magic of manipulation. It's magic to entertain. You get what I'm saying? There's a cost and there's the reason you're casting it. But now a wizard, he learns all the low magics and he's trying to learn the high magics through the principles of the low magics. But he doesn't want to cast the low magics because it might make him incapable of achieving the high magics. So that's where I'm going with it. I'm trying to be like, I want to see it all so I know the principles. Oh, yeah, you can really fuck someone up with this pentagram and these ideologies. You just put it on the board and you put a little machine that ticks every 20 seconds. Put a frog heart on there and put it in a cave, and you're casting the spell on this person every single day for whatever negativity you wanted, and you don't even have to be negative about it. It's doing it on its own. But let's see how that reference to what I was actually saying. When I remember what it was that I was saying, I have a real problem with that. And that's the diet that they provide us. It's definitely not the beer. Teaching vitamins and minerals, a healthy pH balance. I mean, what can I say?
I mean, you can say whatever you want.
Well, I'm going to quote this. It was some TV show, something. I don't know what it was, but it goes like this. You know how when you have a herd of buffalo and then the lions are coming to attack the buffalo? The ones that the lions attack are the weakest and the oldest, right? And when those oldest go down, it effectively makes the buffalo herd stronger. Well, that's the same thing with beer and brain cells. The beer attacks the weakest brain cells first, which is why you feel so much smarter after your first beer. Oh man, I'm at 6%. By the way, scheduling these in advance, I will keep in mind, and I'm actually going to start charging my phone because I had an hour. That job I was going to do, I didn't even get to go do because supply guys mess up every single order they've ever been asked to do. I don't care what supply you want. If you want supply at a auto parts store, good luck. He's sitting in the back corner and he doesn't even know what you talked about. You said, I want 2013. He's like, you said a 2008, right? No. You go to a plumbing house. Hey, do you have this? Oh, I don't know. Maybe. Well, look. Right? Let me do that job. I had an hour. I should have charged my phone. I'll remember that. What a long way to say that.
No worries. I think Thursdays are probably going to be where we're at for now.
Cool.
They seem to be working out all right.
Cool. And hopefully I get some, I want more people because I could talk all day, but sometimes I want people to be like, no, I know about that. You're wrong on that. Like the hempcrete thing today. That's good. I'm looking for that because if I can't identify the flaw, hopefully you guys can, so I can make it better.
Yeah, you'll know exactly. I mean, that's generally where I excel is editing. Like you come up with the ideas, I'll poke holes in it all day.
Well, I got some more documents too that we need to format like that. We need to get that declaration of observation of status in a generalized format for everybody. That because it might not help a lot of us who are so far beyond the age of 18, but a lot of us have kids.
Yeah.
I don't know, they ain't me, but this is going to help them out. So,
Well,
let's get it going.
I still got some work to do before the 28th.
So, and if you need any help, you know where to find me. So,
yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it sounds like I'm gonna be up this weekend sometime.
cool.